The morning at the View studio began like any other. Lights blazing, audience buzzing, producers whispering urgently through headsets. Michael B. Jordan arrived early, looking sharp in a tailored navy suit with a crisp white shirt. Calm, composed, and gracious as ever, he made his rounds backstage, shaking hands, smiling warmly, even sharing a quiet laugh with the sound tech who adjusted his mic. He was there to promote his latest film, a gritty, emotional drama he'd both directed and starred in. A passion project. One built on lived experience, community stories, and years of careful thought. The mood backstage was easy, even light-hearted. Whoopi cracked a joke that drew a deep laugh from him. Sonny Hostin commended him for his humanitarian work. Sarah Haynes smiled wide and praised his performance in Fruitvale Station. But one host hadn't said a word. Joy Behar sat rigid, arms crossed, brows low, her smile missing. Michael, unaware of what waited ahead, took his seat at the table as the theme music rolled and the audience erupted in cheers. The opening few minutes unfolded as expected. Whoopi asked about the challenge of directing and acting simultaneously. Sarah inquired about his preparation, noting how emotionally raw his character felt on screen. Michael responded with honesty, humility, and flashes of that signature charm. Then, Joy Behar leaned forward. Her voice was sweet, almost too sweet. The kind that hinted at a knife beneath the sugar. "So, Michael," she began, tapping a finger on her cue card. "Another movie where you play a struggling black man trying to beat the odds. You ever think about doing something, I don't know, more original?" The air shifted. The audience fell silent. The panel stiffened. Michael blinked once. "Well, Joy," he replied, keeping his voice level, "I think these stories still matter. They reflect real people, real lives. And if I can give a voice to those who are often silenced, then yes, I'll keep telling them." Joy leaned back slightly, her lips twisting into a smirk. Sure, she said, dismissively. "But don't you think you're just cashing in on the same tired formula? Struggling black man rises up. Everyone claps. End credits. You're not bored of playing the same guy yet?" Michael's jaw tightened, but his tone remained composed. "I don't think that's a fair characterization of my work. These roles, these men, they're layered. They have depth. Trauma, resilience, love, failure, hope. It's not a formula. It's a reality." Joy scoffed. "Come on. Creed, Without Remorse, Black Panther. I've seen them all. You're playing the same role in different costumes." The audience gasped. Whoopi glanced over, visibly uncomfortable. Sonny tried to interject, but Joy pressed on. "Aren't you worried people are gonna figure it out? That you've got no range? That you're hiding behind the same sob story, the same look-at-me rise above narrative? It's getting old." Michael looked down briefly, then back up at her, the calm in his face now edged with steel. "You're entitled to your opinion, Joy," he said slowly. "But I don't think you're seeing the work. I think you're choosing to see what fits your assumption." "Oh, don't flatter yourself," she snapped. "You're just another pretty face Hollywood threw a bone to. And you've been milking it ever since." An audible murmur ran through the crowd. Someone actually whispered, "Wow." Michael inhaled deeply, his fingers tapping once against the table. Still, his voice stayed level. "I worked for everything I have. I wasn't handed anything. Not a role. Not a studio. Not a script. And definitely not your respect." Joy rolled her eyes. "Please. Don't act like you had it so hard. Hollywood loves a handsome black guy with a sad story. Don't tell me you didn't benefit from the image." The tension crackled across the studio. Whoopi leaned forward. "Joy, maybe we should." "No," Joy said sharply, not taking her eyes off Michael. "I'm just saying what people are thinking." Michael sat back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly. Then he smiled, not warmly, but the kind of smile that signaled control. "If that's what people are thinking," he said, "then maybe people need to think harder." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Michael cut her off, not loudly, not aggressively, but with precision. "You think I'm repeating a formula," he said, his voice dropping just enough to silence the room. Try walking through life knowing the world sees your skin before your soul. Try telling your stories in an industry that wants you silent unless you're entertaining. Try building something real and getting told it's cliché just because it's black. Joy froze. Michael continued, calmly but firmly. I'm not here to play safe roles that make white audiences comfortable. I'm here to challenge, to stretch, to reflect truth. If you don't see the value in that, that's fine. But don't mistake your discomfort for my lack of originality. The room was silent. Even the producers behind the cameras stood still. Joy blinked. For once, she didn't have a comeback. Sunny looked over, visibly moved. Whoopi gave the slightest nod, one that only Michael noticed. Michael adjusted his sleeve, then looked at the other hosts. Are we still talking about the film? He asked, with just the faintest smile. Sarah laughed nervously. I think we should. The conversation shifted, but the atmosphere remained electric. The audience clapped, not loudly, but steadily. The kind of applause that meant more than just entertainment. The kind that meant something landed. Joy stayed quiet for the rest of the segment. And when the cameras finally cut to commercial, she stood up and left the table without another word. Michael sat still, exhaling slowly, a flicker of tension leaving his shoulders. Backstage, producers whispered, phones buzzed, and social media was already on fire. But for now, in that studio, the silence said everything. The studio air had thickened to the point of suffocation. Even the camera crew hesitated in their movements, sensing that what they were capturing wasn't just another interview, it was something unraveling. Joy Behar leaned forward again, clearly emboldened by her own words, as if she were delivering a monologue and not having a conversation. Her voice, syrupy and sharp, sliced the silence. Tell me, do you even deserve all this? The accolades, the platform, the praise? Let's be honest. Hollywood doesn't reward talent. It rewards marketability. And you, Michael, you're marketable. Michael's polite smile had disappeared long ago. What remained was a man who'd been professionally dissected, publicly questioned, and stripped of the courtesy normally extended even to the most controversial guests. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her, with a calm so heavy, it silenced even the whispers from the audience. You know, Joy, he said slowly, his voice low and measured, there's something dangerous about the way you're talking. Not just to me, but about me. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations masked as curiosity. You're not challenging ideas. You're trying to diminish a person. Joy opened her mouth, but Michael raised his hand gently, not to silence her, but to make a point. I've spent years training for roles people don't even know I auditioned for. I've taken rejections that no one heard about. I've been in rooms where I was the only one who looked like me, trying to prove that I belonged there not because of what I looked like, but because of what I brought to the table. A flicker of uncertainty passed across Joy's face, just for a second. I've been told I wasn't urban enough for black roles. Then told I was too urban for mainstream ones. I've been asked to smile more, to tone it down, to make it safer. And I've done it with grace, with patience, with integrity. He leaned in slightly now, not aggressively, but with clarity. And after all that, you sit here and reduce it to abs and a brand deal. You call my work inspirational fluff. You think you're saying something bold. But really, you're just saying something tired. The audience was so still, it felt like time had paused. Everything I've earned, I've worked for. And I know that makes some people uncomfortable, that a black man can be successful, driven, complex, and still be unapologetically himself. But let me be clear, I'm not asking for permission. I'm not asking for validation. Least of all from someone who's built a career out of sneering at sincerity. Joy scoffed under her breath, but it didn't have the same force as before. There was a tremor there, something shaken. Michael turned his gaze briefly toward Whoopi, who gave him the faintest nod of quiet support. Then he looked back at Joy. I came here to talk about a film. About art. About stories that matter. Not to be interrogated by someone who's decided I don't deserve my own narrative. Joy crossed her arms, clearly thrown off balance. So you're just gonna play the victim now? Michael exhaled slowly, eyes unwavering. "No. I'm not a victim. I'm a man who spent his life turning doubt into discipline. And I'm tired of pretending I need to justify my worth to people who made up their minds before I opened my mouth." The room was still. Then a slow, quiet clap began from somewhere in the back of the audience. It grew, tentatively at first, then stronger. Soon the entire studio was applauding. Not cheering. Applauding. It wasn't a celebration. It was acknowledgement. Joy blinked rapidly and looked away. Whoopi cleared her throat and leaned into her mic. "Let's take a moment," she said gently. "I think we've all heard enough." Michael nodded slightly and sat back in his chair, exhaling, the tension releasing from his shoulders 1 inch at a time. The panel moved on, albeit awkwardly, to a lighter segment. The audience watched Michael more closely now, not as a celebrity, but as a man who'd stood his ground under fire and never once lost control. When the segment ended and the cameras cut to commercial, Joy stood abruptly and walked off without a word. Michael remained seated for a moment longer. One of the producers came over quietly and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thanks for staying calm," she whispered. He gave her a faint, tired smile. Backstage, the buzz was immediate, assistants whispering, social media managers glued to their phones, publicists debating how it would play online. But Michael didn't care. He pulled off his mic, thanked the crew, and walked calmly down the hallway. As he stepped out into the sunlight outside the studio, he paused. Took a breath. He had nothing to prove. Not anymore. And if people were still asking whether he was a real actor, maybe the question said more about them than it ever did about him. Joy leaned in, eyes glinting. "Oh, but I do, Michael. I know exactly what you are." The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, shocked murmurs, a few audible no ways. A line had just been crossed, and everyone in the room knew it. Michael didn't flinch. He stared at her, steady, unblinking. For a long, aching moment, he said nothing. Then finally he spoke, his voice low, quiet, but so precise that every syllable landed like a blow. "I don't think you do." Silence. The kind of silence that carries weight. The kind that doesn't just fall over a room, it buries it. This was no longer an interview. It was something else. Something raw. And the audience could feel it. The air felt thinner. Even the studio lights seemed to dim. The show returned from another break, but this time there was no energy, no polite laughter, no bubbly music to fill the void. Just tension. Michael sat forward in his chair now, no longer folded back in reserved poise. His hands rested, interlaced on the table. Controlled. Ready. Joy, emboldened by the silence, leaned in again. She didn't realize the tide had already turned. "So, Michael," she began, the edge in her voice now bordering on condescension, "you've built your entire career playing men people feel sorry for. Fighters. Convicts. Soldiers with sob stories. You ever think about doing something that actually challenges you? Or are you just comfortable being Hollywood's favorite charity case?" Michael's nostrils flared slightly, but his voice didn't rise. "Is that what you think, Joy?" She grinned smugly. "Oh, I don't think. I know. You've been playing the same man with a new backstory for 10 years. And now you want to be taken seriously as a director? Please. You cry on cue, throw a few punches, and the crowd claps." The audience audibly winced. Sunny buried her face in her hands. Whoopi glanced toward the producers, clearly hoping someone would cut the segment. Michael leaned back, jaw clenched, breathing slow and steady. "You know," he said slowly, "the fact that you can reduce a body of work, years of stories, of characters, of real people's lives, to a punchline says a lot more about you than it ever could about me." Joy chuckled, but it didn't land like before. There was a waver to it now, something unsure. "Oh, don't start psychoanalyzing me," she snapped. "You think you're some deep thinker now because you've got box office numbers? Give me a break." Michael's lips curled into a humorless smile. "I'm not a deep thinker, Joy. I'm just a man who believes words matter. Representation matters. And truth matters." She rolled her eyes. "Well, good," she shot back, her tone climbing. "Because here's the truth. You're not all that. You're decent. You got lucky. And now you believe your own hype." Michael uncrossed his hands and sat forward again, eyes locked onto hers. "You're right about one thing," he said evenly. "I did get lucky. Lucky that my parents believed in me. Lucky that my community raised me. Lucky that I got to learn from rejection, not be broken by it. But the rest, the grind, the auditions I didn't book, the hours spent perfecting roles no one saw, that wasn't luck. That was work. Relentless, unforgiving, exhausting work." Joy opened her mouth again, but he cut her off, his voice rising just slightly. "And I'll be damned if I let someone who's never walked a day in my shoes tell me what I haven't earned." The audience erupted in applause, not explosive, but deep and steady, like they were backing him up without needing a cue. Joy's face flushed, but she pushed forward. "Oh, spare us the motivational speech. At the end of the day, you're just a product. Marketable. Predictable. Packaged for easy consumption." Michael straightened, his fire showing now, still controlled, but burning bright. "You want to talk about branding," he said, voice sharp now. "What are you, Joy? You sit in that chair and tear people down for ratings. You play the skeptic because controversy keeps you relevant. You don't challenge people. You bait them. You don't provoke thought. You provoke pain." Gasps. Murmurs. Whoopi visibly closed her eyes. Michael continued. "You've made a career out of being the loudest voice in the room. But being loud doesn't make you right. And being cruel doesn't make you powerful." Joy slammed her palm on the table. "You think you can come on my show and lecture me?" Michael leaned in. "No, Joy. I came here to talk about a film I care deeply about. But since you turned this into something else, let me say this, it takes nothing to mock. But it takes everything to create. And whether you ever respect it or not, I will keep creating. I'll keep telling stories that make people uncomfortable. That's the point." Another round of applause. This one louder. Joy glared at him, chest heaving, but she said nothing. The camera panned to the other hosts, silent, moved, unsure how to transition out of a moment this real. Finally, Whoopi cleared her throat. "We're gonna take a quick break," she said softly, "and when we come back, we'll talk about Michael's film." But they never really did. When the show returned, Joy was gone. Her chair was empty. Michael stayed, poised, centered, at peace. He answered questions from the other hosts about his directing process, the emotional weight of his story, and what it meant to use art as a mirror to the world. And the audience listened, not as fans, but as witnesses. Because that day, they didn't just watch an actor promote a movie. They watched a man reclaim his voice. And no one would forget it. The silence in the studio was suffocating. Joy Behar sat motionless, her carefully crafted persona shattered. Her cheeks flushed, her lips pursed tightly, but no words came. The audience, once a sea of curious faces, now stared with something between awe and disbelief. Michael B. Jordan's chair sat empty, but somehow it filled the room more than Joy's presence ever could. For a moment, no one moved. No one dared. And then, a slow, hesitant clap echoed from the back row. Another followed. And then another. Within seconds, the studio erupted into a thunderous standing ovation, not just for a celebrity who stood up for himself, but for a human being who refused to be belittled, broken, or reduced for the sake of entertainment. Joy blinked, stunned, her fingers still clenched around her cue cards, now crumpled at the edges. Her trademark smirk was gone, replaced with something much harder to define, something like regret. Or maybe fear. Fear that, for the first time in her long career, she wasn't in control. Off stage, Michael didn't look back again. He didn't need to. His words still echoed. Cynicism doesn't make you wise. Bitterness doesn't make you strong. And in that single walkout, calm, powerful, uncompromising, he reminded everyone watching that strength isn't found in shouting the loudest or tearing others down. It's in knowing your worth. In knowing when to speak, when to walk, and when to draw the line. It was more than a dramatic moment. It was a statement. A mirror held up not just to Joy Behar, but to all the voices in media and society who thrive on humiliation, mockery, and spectacle. Because what millions witnessed wasn't just a celebrity storming off a set. It was a man reclaiming his voice. A man who'd carried too much silence for too long. A man who refused to be silenced by someone who never bothered to listen in the first place. And maybe, just maybe, it gave the world permission to do the same. The broadcast cut to commercial, but the internet would replay that moment for days to come. Debates would rage, headlines would twist it, but the truth was already imprinted on the hearts of everyone who saw it live. Michael didn't just walk out. He walked up. And in doing so, he reminded us all of the power of dignity, the courage of restraint, and the thunder that comes with speaking softly, but truthfully. Clapperboard if this story moved you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been in a moment where you had to stand your ground, even when it was hard? Red heart, like this video if you believe that dignity still matters in today's world. Bell and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real, and unforgettable moments. Because sometimes, the quietest voices speak the loudest truths.